she needed a slightly different from what they are. We talk, she names are.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. How are you tonight, Allison?
I'm doing well. I heard that tonight's episode is about a favorite topic of mine.
Me?
Yeah.
It's all about me. No, you're right. Not only a favorite topic of yours, but you've been to all the places we will discuss tonight. You weren't with us on Saturday when we recorded this, but you've been there before. We visited 3 different cemeteries along the river in Lancaster County.
We're about a week late for World Goth Day, but I feel like this will...
It's always Goth Day in my heart. Before we get going with the show, my new art booklet, Monsters Under the Hospital Bed, is available now in our Etsy shop. 18 drawings I did after my MS attack, some of them in the hospital, some of them at home when I was on medical house arrest or whatever they called it. You can find it in our Etsy shop. Help support the show. Helps make up some lost income we had when I was on my back there. A bunch of people already bought it. Thank you very much. If you haven't gotten it, it's a great way to support the show. Get a cool little art booklet besides. Also, Strange Familiars Awoken Tree t-shirts are back in stock at Etsy as well. Every size from small through 3XL.
Yeah, there was a lady who wrote a couple months ago and asked me for a specific size that we didn't have at the time, and I tried to find her email today, but I think we just had to call some stuff that wasn't immediately relevant, so I couldn't find it, but yes, all the sizes are back.
When I say we get tons of email, I am not specific enough. Yes, most of it comes into the Gmail address, but we also get tons of messages on Etsy. I get tons of messages on Instagram. I get tons of messages on Facebook, both for the podcast and my personal Facebook. Everywhere anyone can message us, we get tons of messages. So I think that message came in via Etsy, and I know there was another one. I think a guy wrote via Etsy asking for a bigger size as well. And I mentioned to him, you'll hear it on the show when we get new sizes, and because these messages get buried. Because,
yeah, they got buried. I kept looking for it. I knew it was like maybe February, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, tons of these other messages come in. So if you've been waiting for t-shirts in a specific size, everything small through 3XL is available now in our Etsy shop. Before we get into the cemeteries, let's thank our patrons. Thank you very much, patrons. We could not do Strange Familiars without you. You make Strange Familiars happen. If you like what we do and you'd like to get more Strange Familiars, the best way to do that is to become a patron at Patreon. It's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. Go ahead and check it out. All different levels of support there. You can get extra content, or you can get things like the aforementioned t-shirt. You can get copies of my books, original artwork, and more. Again, it's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. If you don't like the idea of a subscription like Patreon, and you want to just make a one-time donation, check the show notes under any episode at strangefamiliars.com. You can make a one-time donation via PayPal there. There's a paypal.me link. All right, so let's get into these cemeteries. This was a very last-minute thing. Chad and I were looking for something to do as far as visiting some spooky places, and I'd written about Hans Graf Cemetery in Beyond the Seventh Gate. I always meant to do a show there, but really, it's a tiny cemetery. I didn't know if we could base a whole show just on Hans Graf.
It's basically like if you have like a small garage. It's about the size of a small garage.
Yeah. So we decided to hit a bunch of different cemeteries, and as we were driving to Laurel Hill, which is a beautiful, beautiful view up on Laurel Hill, you can see the river from Columbia.
This is not the Laurel Hill Cemetery that's outside of Philadelphia. That's a very common name for cemeteries I've found.
Yes. This is in Columbia. Chad remembered that Diane, listener, a patron, wonderful friend, had experiences at Laurel Hill, and he said, call Diane, see if she'll meet us out here. So with literally no notice whatsoever, called Diane, and she came right out and told us her stories. So this first section is Chad and I at Laurel Hill waiting for Diane to arrive. Just a little introduction.
So where are we, Timothy?
In a cemetery.
In a cemetery.
Laurel Hill, which is in Columbia, Pennsylvania.
One of our favorite towns.
Home of the Albatwiches. So I have a correction to make. When we were at the other cemetery in Columbia, well, one of the others, as we'll see maybe in this episode, there's several.
We're doing a cemetery tour tonight.
Mount Bethel Cemetery, when we were there.
With John.
It's an earlier episode. I was under the false impression that cemetery was when there was a creature sighting, which did seem weird because it's in the middle of the town, but you know, weirder things have happened. So I thought I was in the right place for that. Apparently I was not. It is in Laurel Hill Cemetery, where we are currently, that there was a sighting in the 1980s, and my friend Chris, who does Albatwitch Festival and works for Columbia Historical Society, he mentioned that he remembers, because I think he was in high school at the time, he remembers the cemetery being closed for a couple days because of whatever somebody saw up here, whatever creature or anything.
Wasn't there cops called in and the whole 9 yards?
I think so. If I can find the article, I'll see if I can read it for the podcast. So I mentioned an article about a creature sighting at Laurel Hill Cemetery, and I found it. This is from the Columbia News, September 26, 1984. What lurks at Laurel Hill? Could it be Bigfoot? Are we being invaded by Martians? Has the Loch Ness Monster taken up residence in town? Or is it Bigfoot that's been lurking in the shadows of Laurel Hill recently? Apparently something or someone scared the wits out of a couple of local residents in Laurel Hill Memorial Gardens early yesterday morning. Local police said a young couple in their early 20s observed a large hairy creature loping toward their car in the local cemetery Tuesday at 1 a.m. The thing was so scary and so real that the young man went back a second time to check it out, according to police, who plan to investigate the incident further. Described as being over 6 feet tall, with a heavy build, and being hairy, the thing was observed at a distance of about 50 feet, according to police. For those determined to take a stroll in the dark, the above information should serve as a reminder that Bigfoot indeed may have arrived in town. So with that in mind, we'll talk to Diane and hear some of her experiences at the back of Laurel Hill Cemetery. It backs right up to the woods there.
And just so people know, like Laurel Hill, this is a modern cemetery, well kept. I didn't really see any old graves here. There might be.
No, and it overlooks the river. This is really actually beautiful if you go up. We're in the back part.
Yeah.
But part of the cemetery just overlooks the river. It's just got a beautiful view. Beautiful view. It's heading towards nightfall here.
It's a giant star. I think a lot of veterans. This is like the veteran area of the cemetery in the back of the cemetery. And we're going to be meeting a friend of ours
who had some pretty strange encounters here.
Yep, so we're going to get her story here on site.
She's coming out with literally no notice.
Yeah.
We were just here and we texted her and she said, I'll be right there.
We're just kind of like freestyling tonight. Really don't have a plan and it's coming together. So now this backs up to, didn't we drive around here one time and like Chickies Ridge from Chickies Rock runs along this?
Mm-hmm. And
there's like a bunch of woods back here and some strange building that we saw on Google Maps. And
yeah, it's an old like cabin or abandoned house or something that's back here. Diane's been to it.
Yep. That's who we're meeting.
Yes.
Diane.
It was rumored by locals that there were traps placed around that house, that whoever lived there had built like pit traps and stuff around it. Not true. It was a doctor who was apparently a very kindly doctor who lived there. No traps.
What's with doctors living out in the middle of nowhere and people think they're doing crazy stuff?
I don't know.
Toad Road.
Yeah, it reminds you of Dr. Belknap, Toad Road. Now, when we talk about things living in the woods, right?
Yeah. Such as?
Hairy things, whether it be Bigfoot or Albatwitch, big or little, hairy things.
Or wild men.
Did you hear that? I don't know what that was. It was quiet. I mean, distant. I don't know if the recorder caught it. In any case, when people talk about Albatwitch living in and around Columbia, and you want me to believe this is some sort of natural animal, not a chance. There's a breeding population of even 3-foot tall hairy ape men that live in the woods here, and then we're supposed to believe they're natural creatures, and we can't find them.
Well, we've hiked on those other trails along Chickies Ridge from Chickies Rock.
Oh yeah,
and it breaks up.
There's not a lot there.
There's not a lot, and there's not a lot behind here. I mean, there's a good bit of woods back here, but
yeah, not enough to hide a breeding population of monkey creatures or ape men or whatever you want to call them, whatever Albatwitch are.
Yeah, there's no way something like that could hide here. It was funny, though, that the birds stopped when you heard whatever you heard. I didn't hear it.
It was distant, whatever it was. Low in tone. I doubt the recorder picked it up. Given that night we were by Big Pond Furnace, and that sounded like a 12-inch circumference tree was just snapped, and then
that was insane.
So loud. It was so loud, and then on the recording it
didn't sound like anything.
I couldn't even really pick it out on the
I still need to listen to that recording from the other night. So we're gonna do some knocking here. You know, I wish I knew the call. What's the call you're supposed to do?
What, for Albatwitches?
Yeah.
It's a welcome whistle.
Do you know how to do that?
I never taught it.
I'll have to learn.
I'm not good at whistling anyway. Can you whistle? Can you do
it? Well, somewhat.
There's supposed to be they call it the welcome whistle. And there's the car.
Yep.
And supposedly if you know the whistle, you can whistle and they'll answer back. I heard, like, folklorically speaking, that you have to get an old hunter to teach it to you. By that I mean I don't think that many people know it. It was an old book of folklore talking about the welcome whistle. Interestingly enough, in that book of folklore, they said Albatwitches are only like 3 apples tall, which is very
Smurfs.
interesting. Yeah, right.
Well, I brought you a present.
Me or him?
Well, either of you. This right here.
So wait a second. Before we even get started, Diane, were you wearing that T-shirt before I called you?
Yes, I was.
She's in a cryptid shirt. The cryptid mash.
The cryptid mash.
Not to be confused with the cryptid bash.
Absolutely. This or Cthulhu. It tends to be my wardrobe at this point.
So anyways, continue. Sorry.
Present for you is this giant rock.
Okay.
There are some rocks up here, but nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting in this little area. Actually, nope, my sticks are gone. I had sticks that I had sort of put aside up here. Sometimes I put them behind the wall. We were sitting over here, and that rock came up towards us from down there.
Wow.
Oh, that very rock?
That rock.
Wow.
All right, so
it hit, I don't know which one of these gravestones it hit, but the noise that made when it hit that metal was ridiculously terrifying.
Oh, I can imagine.
So this rock is like square shaped, and it's literally fills Tim's hand.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's huge.
If you got hit by that,
yeah.
you've been injured.
You had that actually gotten the whole way. I mean, we're a good, 10, 15 feet from where it landed. But the fact is that it came from so far down there. I don't know if you've looked down to see how down that goes.
Yeah, it's like a bank. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a step back. So why did you start coming here?
Well, this is a nice opening to Chickies. Mm-hmm. When we get up here, it's quiet. You're far enough away from the road that you can hear a little bit more. the moon up here is absolutely gorgeous when it is. And
I was talking about the view overlooking the river too. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, this is like, if I was going to be buried, this is where I would want to be buried. It's beautiful. If you take the trail down and up, that way is that cabin I showed you pictures of.
Yeah, we were mentioning it earlier. We kind of did a walkthrough and we're like just doing a mentioning for most people. We didn't tell your story. We wanted to get the story from you. So
I do this because of meeting you and having gotten involved with Alba Twitch and everything, that I wanted to be here. I wanted to go out into the woods. I was inspired by people that were telling me, hey, we went out, we did this, and I was like, I want to be out doing this. So this was my area where I started. I bring my kids out here. We've hiked up in here during the day. There's an actual water source. You can hear a little bit over the hill. There's just like a little creaky thing.
So earlier today we were driving around because we're going to some other places tonight, and I checked out a possible Bigfoot sighting. It's south of here along railroad tracks. Happened in the early 1900s. You're probably going to go check it out eventually. Okay. He actually didn't even know about that one, right?
It's one of the few I didn't have in my book.
And
I'm not familiar.
And so. In that area, we actually stumbled upon an old cemetery, and then there's a water source.
Huh.
So and a quarry.
And a quarry.
At least there's a quarry road, presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah, there would have been a quarry at some point.
So there you have three things. You know, you have the dead, you have a water source, which you said, you know, a lot of stuff happens in the water source.
Water tower is right down there.
Yeah, yeah.
The police will sit down there at the water tower, and I believe that's what the access road is for, because this access road will take you up into the power lines, and then. Because I tried to come at it from the other side and went up behind the nursing home, but there's no viable way. It's very brambly and full of the jaggers. I don't know what.
Sounds like a ruck rabbit way.
I'm not really sure. Well, it's solid. It's
yeah.
Like
it would take
you're
some
just not
bushwhacking to get into there.
And I, unlike you, am never prepared for anything like that. My cell phone won't cut through that stuff. But we've gone up and over here, up this crest. I've heard sounds coming from up there. Now the other really, like, I've had two really freaky experiences up here. The first is having that rock thrown at us.
Yeah, so you had told me the story about the rock before.
Yep.
I did not know how substantial
I kept
it was.
it.
Wow.
Well, I looked for it because of how big a noise it made.
Sure. Yeah.
And the fact that there aren't rocks really up here. Now, there are some that are, like, over in that area.
Right, but
nothing like that.
Plus, that's one of those, like, some kind of iron face or whatever on those
Yeah.
grave markers, Chad?
Yeah, it's like
so you can imagine. I'm not going to do it because it's disrespectful, but you can imagine the sound a big heavy rock.
Yeah, it could even be brass.
It resonated and just like
that's crazy.
And when you're just sitting out here, it is so peaceful and so quiet, and you just like I was waiting. I was taking pictures. I've seen movement along the tree line, like up into that more dense area. But when I would get up there, nothing.
Did you ever have any lights here?
No. I waited for lights. I really wanted lights. But I'm wondering, though, for that, if it isn't, like, because when I come up here 11, 12 o'clock at night, I'm kind of trying to stay, like, right here. I'm not you. I'll get lost.
Understand.
During the day, I hike up and through here, no problem. I know how to get down there. I can take you up to the cabin at some point. I'm familiar. But at nighttime, I don't trust it. So when I'm up here by myself, this is usually the area I hang out in. Now, I use my one ghost recorder because of the fact that the left side of me is a graveyard, and I usually have that turned on with words going. And so I'll be talking and trying to see if someone with the words actually is trying to tell me something, or if we're just dealing with this end of a cemetery.
Right. And wasn't there something else you said you had thrown at you before?
Oh, the laughter. Oh, my gosh. So I have some bangy sticks up here. And sometimes I will go up and around in there, do a little loop, come back up and around, banging my little sticks together. I was up probably, it's right up between those two little trees right there, just kind of just over up at the top.
So that's about 15 yards.
Yeah.
Roughly 10 yards.
And I just hit it twice. I wasn't saying anything. I was just knocking wood. And I heard 3 chunks of laughter.
Wow.
And it didn't sound anything but human. Like, I'm not going to say it wasn't a human, but no one saw me. It wasn't, because like my first was, oh, somebody must have seen me. I'm like walking through the woods banging sticks together. I must look like a night.
Night? Wow. Yeah, I doubt anybody saw you.
Yeah, I don't know how well known this spot is. I've never seen another person up here. And I mean, there were weeks I was up here 2 or 3 nights a week.
I remember you telling me you'd go a lot.
Yeah, this was like my little
Didn't you say
zen
though
spot.
in another conversation you had other things thrown at you besides just that rock?
Well, that rock came up over there. I mean, we've had stuff fall, but I don't know enough. Like, we were trying to figure out what trees these are, if there's stuff that actually like falls out of these trees. Stuff has come down from above. Branches have been crunchy breaking. I mean, I just didn't want to, I'm not the one that's trying to read everything into it.
Oaks here.
Okay.
So you would have acorns dropping on
Okay.
you. But I had thought you said you had, in another conversation I had with you, that you actually had acorns thrown at you.
Well,
before.
they came from, I mean, we've had stuff in our direction, but when my brain wants to go, well, I'm sitting under an oak tree. If I have acorns hit me.
That's smart. That's smart. No, that's a very good thing to think about.
It's been weird. Like, it has nights where you don't feel anything. You can come up here and sit for 4 or 5 hours and just chill and just enjoy the quiet and nothing goes down. Then you have nights you come up here, you feel jumpy.
That tracks. Absolutely.
You feel a little weird, like something might be watching you or something just feels off. And those are the nights where things happen, things were thrown. I mean, there was a log rolled down the hill the one time. Because coming up here by myself, too, this is about as safe as I feel. But, yeah, stuff's rolled down the hill at me. Because I'm almost always sitting, like, right here. And I figured if I had some sort of pattern that I was creating by being in this space, that if something else was up here that also had a pattern, that we would kind of like
eventually jive.
Yeah.
Have you done any gifting here or anything like
My
that?
gifting site is about halfway up to the cabin.
Oh,
but
cool.
I haven't been there this year yet.
So what kinds of things were you leaving?
I had a Sharpie, a spring, a Pokemon toy. Basically, it was stuff that was in my purse that I just happened to have when I went, this little, because it's like a clearing at the top of a ridge. And it had some trees, but there was a big flat rock.
Did you ever get anything taken, anything left, or anything moved?
No, because the last time we were up here was when we did it, and I hadn't been up.
Oh, so you haven't been there since? Oh, okay. So you don't know?
I don't know. And I don't know, I put some things that would have been knocked over down on the ground next to it, so it wasn't like the wind came along and moved all my stuff.
Did you take a photo of it as you left it?
I don't think I did.
We do that.
Yeah.
That's something.
I've been having a bit of an issue this year with my feet, and it's a good hike up to the cabin, but it's a lot of this going up like a straight hill face at the one point, and that is where I found that little like landing where I put the stuff.
Oh, so it's a good
it's off the beaten.
Were you with me at the one Albert Twitch meeting where the person was talking about there being traps around that cabin?
And there is a big hole dug in the ground.
Okay, all right.
Which I think a kid might think
was
some
pit
sort
trap
of a
or
trap.
something. Okay.
It might have been a well, but it is like bricked. It did have water. It did have propane. It has a fireplace. Like I have all the pictures, so if you want any of the pictures from it. But it's up a little bit. But yeah, this is a decent hike. Once you can either go down and up the like road that's made, or you can go kind of up and around this way. because it goes down back in there. There's some rocks and stuff.
Yeah, I was just making sure I remembered that right. I remember them saying. And then somebody said like a doctor lived there who they remembered as kindly, and said that he would have never put traps around his place.
Yeah, no, that was. It really looks like it was. Maybe it was like a pool or a way to keep things cool, like a cooling sort of water situation. But it doesn't. But I could see how a kid would think.
Yeah.
That if you had spikes in the bottom of that would hurt. But yeah, I've had a lot of stuff roll down the hill. And it changes, every year I come up. It's been a couple of years of doing this now.
Sure.
Well, and the other woman who's in the Historical Society was talking about the very first cement grave, three-dimensional cement grave that you pass as you come up here, that the kids would peek in because her nails were growing.
Oh, creepy.
Yeah, so they were always scared of that. And I also had heard someone tell me that as you turn in to come up here, there's a bunch of wooded area before you get to the house. And a gentleman and his wife were walking their dog, and they heard sounds from that specific area that sounded like people having a really good time.
Mm-hmm.
And,
okay, yeah.
And some screaming that sounded very intense, that they weren't 100% sure it was human.
Oh, weird.
But they told us that. I think the gentleman is the one that told me that on one of the tours.
Oh, wow.
That he had said, because we were talking about, when we do the trolley tour, we kind of come up and around here. And he had said about how they used to walk their dog there every night and had heard that. But it was literally like right as you turn in to come up to the cemetery, that little grassy area right there.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It's a cool rock formation up there.
Yeah, just on the other side of the...
Now there were lights. If you go on the rock formation, there was like lights. So there might be a house that's close to
there is. There are houses that aren't very far once you get, you're toward the backyards of them.
But first I saw these lights, I'm like, they look like candles, and they were...
See that dirt line there?
Yeah.
If you follow that dirt line up, it's a little ways out, but that seems to be the edge of
their property.
Which is why normally when I come in here, I actually go down and then up that way, because I'm avoiding being right at everybody's backyards. I don't want to get dogs barking at me or anything that would scare me. There is someone up here does have a dog. I have heard dogs barking, but I do believe it belongs to one of the houses.
Yeah. Cool, though. Cool spot. You definitely have to go to your offering area and see if that's...
Yeah, we just hadn't had a chance to yet. I actually just got my orthotics, so I'm supposed to be chugging along here pretty soon.
I know what it is to lose it and try to work it back.
Right? But it's steep, and you're gonna go back a little bit before you hit the water. And what's crazy about the water is that it has this big old pipe over it that looks like something like a machine would have smashed it or ripped it. And my kids and I have mentioned it a couple times every time we come up, because it just seems odd. It's oddly placed. I mean, it makes sense, the water, but how did they get it back there, and why?
You'd be surprised.
That's like the Toad Road. There's big pipes back there.
Yeah, it's like well, how did these get here? Yeah. Why are they here? I've been in the middle of nowhere, and there's a steam shovel there from 1927.
Or cars. That
cars.
Why is there a car way out here in the woods?
Yeah, most of this area was
Yeah, this is all second growth or even later.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
But still, very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
During the day, if you would ever want to come up, I can take you up and around.
Oh, yeah. We wouldn't do that at night.
We might do it at night.
Well, I would, and you would. But I don't want to make her do it.
No, oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Well,
she knows where it is.
Well, the problem with me is when I was coming up here, if he wasn't with me, I was coming up here by myself, and
it's not
I'm only good for a good fit. Then I start spooking myself, and then I'm completely discrediting everything I'm trying to do, because now I've got myself spooked entirely on my own. But yeah, we've heard stuff. We've branches, but the two biggest ones have to be that rock
Yeah, that rock is impressive.
Because of the fact that, well, and that's
especially coming up the hill. Someone
Yeah.
had to heave that. Like,
Yeah,
I'm saying someone.
right.
Do you remember
Whatever's
which
responsible.
one it hit?
I don't, because it was dark and we don't put lights up when we sit out here.
No,
where you
don't.
literally
Don't.
sit in the
That's
dark.
smart.
But what I found it somewhere in amongst here that to me
So it had to hit one of those.
it
two
could
or
have bounced off at either one.
three. Still,
Yeah.
So
If they had different sounds, I could probably tell you which
the
one,
closest.
but I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to.
So looking at these metal, they're face plates for graves that are level.
for
'cause that's
markers, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do nowadays, so they can just mow over everything. But the closest one to the woods is at least a good 8 feet, 10 feet.
Well, there's no one in this one.
There isn't?
It's
No,
just the
she's
birth
not,
date.
She's still alive.
Oh, so it's
I started to like take notes of the names around me because of my ghost thing on my phone gives me names sometimes.
yeah, it's smart.
And I really wanted to know, but
But
I know specifically that this one
To
was still alive.
heave that rock, they would
Yeah.
either have been standing on the very edge of the hill where you couldn't see it. You're still talking.
And there's no way that they would have been here without making noise.
Right, yeah, that's all brush.
Yeah.
You would presumably you would have heard something come
Yeah.
up through there.
Oh, you couldn't have gotten this far.
Yeah, it's all dead leaves and brush and
So the trail,
branches.
the old road is probably from the grave a good 20 yards and
down.
downhill at least a good 20 feet,
At least.
at least.
Yeah.
So that's a hell of a throw.
That's a
And that's
a
what-
shot put.
Why I get so creeped out up here specifically when noise occurs, because if I'm not hearing you coming crunching towards me,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're making a noise, because you can't walk up in through here without making that sound.
Right.
Well, not normal people.
Yeah, that's true.
Crazy.
Unless you're going from tree to tree.
Oh yeah. If you're on this tree and you drop the rock, that's another thing. But still, that's a hell of a.
Well,
That's
it
a hell of a
sounded
rock.
Like it came from this way.
I'm
It sounded
impressed.
like it hit leaves because we both were kind of like whoa and bang.
Well, if it's arcing through the air, you're gonna hear it hitting leaves. It's going through. That's nuts. I'm just glad nobody got hit by that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have brained you for good.
Well, and
for
it
sure.
could have landed anywhere up here, really, and not made a noise.
The interesting thing is that with all of the stone throwing accounts I've ever heard of, which are tons, doing research for the books and stuff, I think probably less than 5 I can think of where people actually got hit by a rock. One of those being the Minerva, Ohio, where the person said, "If you're so good, hit me between the eyes."
Or you ask
And
for
whap right
Oh,
between the
wow.
eyes. But
yeah, because I mean, here's some rock. Here's some rock, but it's not quite
yeah, that's
the
more
same.
like
And
almost like
it's-
shale or something.
And
Yeah,
it's dug in. It's fairly dug in.
yeah. There's not
And
a
it
lot of
has
just
been.
loose big rocks here.
But,
Cool.
Yeah, so here you go.
Thank you, Diane.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for coming out
Absolutely.
on such a short notice.
I said, Tim wants to know what I'm doing. He's like, oh, tell him we can come. It's going to be fun,
Well,
whatever.
do you want to go to? We're going to go to Hans Graf after this. You want to go?
Sure.
You're
Yeah,
welcome
that's
to come.
from my high school. Like,
So you know the stories about
Oh, yeah.
Hans Graf?
Well, I did something. You're not recording?
I am. The red light means I'm recording. I'll let you know when would you like me to pause it?
Well, it's up to you. I did something illegal with Hans Graf Cemetery, but I wasn't doing it to be mean. I was doing it to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Someone had gone in at some point and knocked a lot of the stones over and graffitied them with pentagrams.
Ah, okay.
Now, we all know that's next to
Right.
teenage nonsense.
Yeah.
And I took those stones home
Oh, did you?
to clean them
Oh, wow.
and returned them.
Well, yeah.
But in about a month and a half, they were under the couch in my living room. The stuff that happened in the apartment at that time was really, really... We lived here in Columbia. I had a roommate.
I don't know if you want to keep that on the podcast, but it's still gold. Go ahead. Keep going. It's cool.
And it was just one of those really weird situations where we had what we called a fuchsia cloud over the apartment. And the people that were coming in,
Okay.
the energy that
Because
was
it's strange familiars, let's clarify. Do you mean a literal cloud?
Oh no, just
It's
more
just
like
the
a
idea, right,
feeling,
right.
like not like a visible.
No, we just have to be clear because of Strange Familiars.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking purple cloud also, like an actually visible cloud, and right away I'm going to Elizabethtown.
Right.
But we somehow both felt that color, though. That was the weird part. Like, there was something about the fact that, and the people that were coming in and out of the apartment and in and out of our lives at that moment, everything was very odd. There was a lot of stuff going on that was just unexplainable as far as the people who were behaving in ways that they normally didn't.
So you did end up returning the stones?
I did return the stones. We cleaned them as best as we could, and we did return them. And then someone did fix some of them.
It's a bit Robin Hoody, but I say it's overall you're on the right side of things.
Yeah, I would have just cleaned them there. But
yeah, I mean, well, you were younger.
You meant well.
Yeah,
you didn't hurt anything.
But the thing was, we went there at night.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were there, we were scared.
Right.
You know, you have to jump to get in, and we were like, "We'll just take these," and we just lifted them up over and put them in the car, and just took them with so that we could clean them.
Next, we went to a little cemetery, which is literally over the hill from Laurel Hill. We stumbled onto this cemetery one day. It's called Zion Hill. Now, I was talking to my friend Chris from the Columbia Historic Society, and he told me last year at the Albatwitch Day Festival, which I didn't go because of the pandemic last year, they were doing trolley tours, and he said they pulled in at night into Zion Hill Cemetery, and they saw red eyeshine in the back of the cemetery, moving from tree to tree, he said.
Is that the one we've been to previously? That is traditionally an African-American cemetery?
Yes. So we went to Zion Hill, and Diane had some stories from there as well. Not her personal experiences, but she gives the trolley tours. So she had some stories that she had learned about Zion Hill.
This one is incredibly creepy is because none of the bodies are actually where the stones are. All of the stones in this cemetery have been removed from the bodies. They did come in here. First of all, we didn't even know this was a cemetery at one point. Chris's stories about being down in here when the grass was up to here.
Wow.
And you didn't see any of the gravestones. But what happened was when they built Route 30 and they came through here,
which you can hear very loudly in the background,
they dug up that end of the cemetery and just sort of tossed the bodies.
Oh my goodness.
So when they came in here with ground penetrating radar, I have goosebumps.
Let's walk over here so we get away from the road a little bit.
When they came in with ground penetrating radar, what they found was that literally there is no body buried in a grave in here. There are stones everywhere, but none of them have actual bodies.
So you're saying there's no bodies in this cemetery at all?
They're thrown everywhere, but they're not designated by their headstones.
Now we earlier were walking around the upper part.
Yes.
And there was some spots that looked like that were sunken in.
Yes. And some of those were more of the wealthier people.
All right, so there are bodies where that is.
So
the crosses that are back there, the wooden crosses, were placed where bodies were found when they did the radar.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
All right.
So you have all of these stones. There's stones around that tree just leaning up against it. There's stones in the rubble along the side by the highway over there.
So this is Zion Hill Cemetery. It is right down the hill from Laurel Hill.
The back end of this goes straight up to the road where we were just on coming down from the top.
Very, very interesting. This is an African-American cemetery, if I didn't mention already. There's some really well-known, I guess, soldiers and so forth buried here.
From Columbia that fought in the Civil War on our side that are memorialized here.
Yeah. There's a sign out front that tells the story, and basically this cemetery is from a time where they didn't bury African-American people along with white people.
Right.
Which is crazy.
And they
what a crazy
actually
thing.
moved here.
Yeah.
They were moved here. The original burial for these soldiers was in Columbia City.
Really?
And at some point or another, they were moved out to this particular piece of land in a fairly grand manner. That this was then their cemetery. But then when Route 30 was built, apparently
They didn't care.
they didn't care.
Yeah.
It was coming through here, and sorry for your bodies.
Wow.
Which is why that whole section back there, this was much larger. If I understood correctly,
I believe it.
this was a much larger piece of land until they came in with the highway. Now the other cool thing is that when they did the ground penetrating radar, over in this section, they proved that there was a really old house that had been on this Native American, like a longhouse.
Oh, wow.
So it was the Susquehannock.
Yes.
Because that's what they dwelt in.
And we're right at the same place of where that trolley crash occurred coming down the hill. As you go right out here and up, you're right there where all of those people died because the trolley brakes gave out as they were coming down the hill in a storm.
It makes sense that you would have a dwelling here because there's a creek right here we found earlier, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Little creek, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
right
yeah.
on the other side of where the road is
You're
on
near
this
the
side.
river, you're a food source, water source.
And this is the jump point for everybody that's been looking for the pet cemetery that's somewhere hidden in the woods outside of Columbia. Apparently, the doctor who lived on the property, I guess back in that direction.
The one we were talking about with the cabin.
No,
Different doctor.
This was a guy who took care of a lot of people in Columbia. He was very well known. Everybody loved him. He was the family doctor.
Okay.
His wife felt bad for people who didn't have the money to bury their animals. So she had a pet cemetery created where she would have people's animals buried for them.
And nobody's been able to find that.
We have not been able to find that. But I definitely have come in here with my ghost app, and I normally go straight back. Now, the stories that you hear from this particular place is that you will see movement in the backs of the trees, in the tops of the trees between this and the other cemetery.
We were in here during the day, or when it was still light, and I found the trail that was like pretty wide, and you could remember I told you you could see where something or somebody had walked through there.
Yes.
It wasn't a deer trail. This was big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know who on earth would be back here.
Well, it was in the very back,
Yeah.
on the other, at the very back of the cemetery. And I think it was a bat that just sailed through here just a minute ago. It was like
So yeah, the pictures of this place, because you see the crosses and you see that that's where they found bodies, and that you see this beautiful line of headstones.
I was wondering at the placement of those crosses, and it seemed odd to me, the layout of them. That makes more sense if that's where they.
Yeah, that's what I was told, is that they brought in the ground penetrating radar to see where the bodies were buried, and they found that they weren't really.
Right. Okay. So those were underground. So not where they found the bodies that were tossed when they were. Okay.
There are bodies under the crosses.
Right. Gotcha.
And some of the crosses have been there for so many years. I know someone had petitioned to try to purchase this graveyard to memorialize it better, and there's been a struggle for getting anybody to actually purchase and take care of this land.
So are there ghost stories associated with this?
Well, this is where Chris and his brother were playing, and he got pinned to a tree and couldn't move. He was up against, I believe, that big tree in the middle there. And this is when we didn't know this was a graveyard because the grass was still really high. I mean, it's only been through, with Columbia Historical Society actually coming through and trying to make head and tails of this and get it that it is properly doing what it was supposed to. But it's a far cry from being up at the top.
Yeah.
We're up at the top. Isn't that far from where we are now, But the sound from the highway alone.
Oh, yeah.
I can't sit in here for very long because it gets really noisy.
Yeah.
The lady in white's been seen coming down that hill too.
A lady in white.
Lady in white. Now, if I had to associate it, I'd say that's because of the trolley crash that occurred.
Seen coming down.
Coming down this hill right behind us here.
Interesting. That's very, very interesting.
It came off the road and hit to the side and killed everybody. Because
the lady in white seen walking.
Seen walking down this hill in the same path as the trolley.
Diane.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can drive up this hill where the woman in white is seen and then make our way around to...
Yeah.
Okay, we'll follow you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about last time. I just got excited and I turned.
It's okay, don't worry
and
about
I was like, the minute I turned, I went,
I forgot. The tape recorder wasn't running in the car, obviously. So as we're turning around, I see a light by one of those houses in that little cul-de-sac where we turned around, or dead-end road or whatever it was. And I'm looking at the light, I'm like, it looked a little bit off, but it's where a bunch of houses are or something. And then all of a sudden I see buffalo plaid. I'm like, I got all excited, and then a woman walks out. She was wearing buffalo plaid pajama pants. No flannel man or flannel woman. But I got excited. So
here we throw our apples into the forest from this point up here.
Right.
This is where we talk about the trees and the canopy, because you look above you and you realize that there's very, very little space anywhere once you get to this top that isn't covered entirely by trees. Up and around this road, Rick was coming up and around here, and as he went down around this corner...
Now, was he walking or driving?
He was driving, and he saw it on the road.
Right.
And we're right on
the basin.
Chickies Ridge.
Yes.
So this ridge runs to Laurel Hill Cemetery.
Yeah, that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I never knew where Rick's sighting actually was.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's literally he was coming around this bend and going down this hill, and it was right as you're coming around this corner.
That segment you just heard, we had pulled over. We were on our way from Zion Hill to Hans Graf Cemetery. Diane pulled over, and we pulled over next to her, and she talks about Rick's sighting. Now, what she's talking about there is Rick Fisher had a sighting of a skinny, little, hairy creature, which meets the description of an albatwitch. I talk about that in my book, Beyond the Seventh Gate. If you don't know what albatwitches are, we talk about them on the show pretty often. They're we call them Pennsylvania's little Bigfoot. They're a small, hair-covered creature. They're usually 2 to 3 feet tall, skinny, glowing eyes. Known probably as puckwudgies in the north, but all throughout the country, they have their own, what they call little people, that meet the same description of these things. So I wrote about Rick Fisher's sighting in Beyond the Seventh Gate. Here's an excerpt from that book. Local paranormal researcher and author Rick Fisher saw an albatwitch himself one morning before sunrise in February 2002. Driving toward Marietta on Route 23, Fisher saw what he first assumed to be a human walking in the middle of the road. As he got closer, he realized it was no human at all, but a 5-foot-tall, very skinny biped covered with hair. When he slowed his vehicle and turned on the high beams to get a better look, the creature turned around, showing its 2 yellow eyes, and then vanished from sight. In Fisher's book, Ghosts of the Rivers Towns, he has collected another albatwitch report from the area as well. In 2002, about 2 miles from his own sighting, a group of friends were driving on Pinkerton Road when a thin, hair-covered bipedal creature crossed the road in front of them. So in this area, ghosts, we have cryptid sightings. Diane mentioned a woman in white. So next we went to Hans Graf Cemetery. Now, this is called Hans Graf Cemetery. It is not, in fact, where Hans Graf is buried.
That is so weird because that happens all the time where I'll find this thing, find somebody who's has a cemetery named after them and they're not actually buried there.
I write about Hans Graf Cemetery also in my book, Beyond the Seventh Gate. And I'll read an excerpt from there. We go back to Marietta and head just a bit north to the village of Rowena for another tale of a dogman, werewolves, a white spook wolf, a vampire, and shadow people, all from Hans Graf Cemetery. The small graveyard is notable for the low wall which surrounds all of the graves, yet has no gate. One tale associated with the cemetery states that a family of German immigrants were accused of being werewolves after moving to Marietta. The entire family of 5 was shot with silver bullets on the same night, beneath a full moon, and buried within the walls of the cemetery. If this doubtful story were true, then the stone should show the same death date for everyone in the family. A visit to Hans Graf Cemetery turned up no such group of graves. Perhaps werewolves are buried in unmarked graves? Some say that Hans Graf himself was a werewolf, but his Graf is not buried here, only his descendants. It's unclear how or why Hans Spookwolf would prowl these grounds. Andrew Gable's The Mystery Animals of Pennsylvania notes a story regarding Hans Graf Cemetery, which will call to mind the Seven Gates of Hell legend from York County, as discussed in earlier chapters. The legend states that if you walk around the perimeter of the cemetery 7 times under a full moon, then you will die. Another story related by Gable notes that if you walk around the top of the wall, which surrounds Hans Graf Cemetery, 13 times backwards, then a vampire will appear. Continuing, Gable notes that the most common story associated with the graveyard is that of a ghostly white wolf or white dog seen amongst the graves. Those who do not see the dog are often greeted by a sound of barking, which intensifies if one dares to venture over the wall and into the cemetery. The entry for Hans Graf Cemetery on StrangeUSA.com notes 5 shadow people seen by a witness while gazing at the cemetery walls one night, presumably those 5 lycanthropes whose lives were taken by silver bullets so long ago. The same witness saw a man-sized wolf charging on its hind legs down the road from the cemetery. So we are at what's called Hans Graf Cemetery. Hans Graf is not in this cemetery. These are the relatives of Hans Graf who are buried in this little cemetery that is by Rowena. Is that Rowena? Right there. So. In Lancaster County. And there is a crazy number of legends associated with this cemetery. So what were the legends you heard, Diane, when you were in
high school? We would come out here and we were told you come here on a full moon. It has a wall. The cemetery has a wall the whole way around it. You actually have to kind of go up in the side so you can get up on top of it.
It's actually a tall wall.
It is a very tall wall. It was not meant to be.
How tall are you?
I used to be 6'1", but I've been beaten down by life, and I'm a solid 6 foot now.
So this is probably a good 4 feet.
Up to my ribs.
Yeah,
so
it's a good 4 foot
So
wall.
I was meant to keep people out. And the wall goes the entire way around. There's no opening gate.
There's no gate. Yeah,
there's no way to get in except climbing over the wall. So we would come here on a full moon, and I don't remember, it depends on which one of my friends you ask, but some of us say counterclockwise and some of us say clockwise. You were supposed to say his name repetitively and wander 12 times around the graveyard.
Hans Graf's name.
Hans Graf's name.
Yes, that's different than what I read.
Well, there's a bunch of different legends, yeah.
And, well, this is just my group of friends that, this was what we were told in high school, and what we came out here to see was the ghost of Hans Graf, which, since he's not here, that's kind of against what we were always told anyway. But because his name is on the plaque out front, very predominantly, I believe that's why we did that.
Did you ever hear legends about vampires or werewolves associated with this?
No. No, mostly ghosts. Like, the thing was to come here was that you were gonna wake the ghosts by doing the laps around, and that they would be maintained within the wall.
But that scared the...
Yeah.
That was just Tim's phone going off.
That was me making a sale.
So...
Thank you, whoever. Let me turn that down.
Later, I was going through a very gothy stage, and so was my friend when we came out here to do a nature ritual in this sacred space. We were trying to come up with it, and when we came in, these rows of stones a lot of them were busted, and a lot of them were knocked over, and there was graffiti, and somebody had come through here and just done a number on this whole place. And it was really sad, and we did do what we could do with cleaning the ones that were still intact at the time, but the other ones then we did take home to clean.
Some of these look like they had been replaced.
Yeah.
I found squirrel vertebrae. I believe it was squirrel.
Oh.
On top of this right there.
Huh.
I don't know if that was... There's the train.
Yeah, train going by.
I don't know if that was someone's offering or something was
Well, this is
eating
one
the
of-
squirrel on top of the tombstone. I don't know. So you're a wolf? Like, a barking. Like a
Yeah,
wolf,
barking.
like a bark.
Supposedly when you come here, you hear barking.
Yeah. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it. from
Over that way
direction
behind
before.
me, yeah.
Before, yeah.
It could have been a dog.
Yeah,
but-
supposedly you enter the cemetery in the barking.
So, once again, we have a cryptid sighting. Another cemetery. Ghost stories. And right over there is running water.
And this is, he went to Mannheim High School. I went to Donegal. All of the kids in the high schools have some sort of story specifically about this place.
There's supposedly globes of light here, too.
I spent a lot of time here many years ago, and I think if we would have seen something, or if something crazy would have happened, we probably wouldn't have come here as much. So I don't know if I've ever had any, you're wandering around with a bunch of other high school kids trying to freak each other out. It happens.
So, we went to Hans Graf Cemetery. Not much happened, honestly. We got out the ghost box. We did a ghost box session. Some of them are really fun and seem like a conversation between you and something else. This was one of those sessions which just really wasn't notable. So you would ask questions and the responses didn't seem to make sense. So the way we do the ghost box is, if you've seen Hellier, they do what they call an Estes method. We kind of do a modified Estes method. One person sort of acts as the medium. They're listening to the ghost box through headphones. They can't hear the questions, so they can't be influenced by the questions. I'm asking the questions. Chad has the headphones on.
Mm-hmm.
Chad can't hear the questions. He can't be influenced by the questions. I can't hear the ghost box, so I can't be influenced by what's coming through the ghost box. In Hellier, they blindfold the person listening to sort of isolate them. I stand behind Chad, so he can't see me ask the questions. But we don't use a blindfold. I stand behind Chad. That's the only difference, so I call it a modified Estes method, but that's how we do it. So I was asking questions. The responses I was getting really weren't making much sense, but we did get a number of these like get outs, variants of that. So I'll just play that collection of those because that was pretty interesting.
Get out of this. Goodbye. Get out. Get out.
And we did not, in fact, get out. We stayed there for quite a while afterwards. We were getting ready to go, and Diane mentioned previously when we were at Laurel Hill, you heard her mention going to Hans Graf when she was younger, finding a bunch of the tombstones that were vandalized, and taking them back to her apartment to clean them. So she kind of tells the full story in this segment and the weird things that were happening around her apartment. There are some what I would call adult concepts in this segment. I think we handled it nicely, but it involves some
Adult scenarios.
adult scenarios, yes. If your kids are listening, you may want to give it a listen first before you let them listen.
We spent a lot of time just on a blanket, sitting in here, hanging out. This was just like our place. Yeah, at no point did I feel threatened, but I'm kind of defiant at this point because I was really hoping to get some sort of, if I understood what happened to our apartment, because this was before I did drugs or anything like that. I wasn't a drinker. I was 18, and the change in the apartment that happened after those stones showed up was so significant in all of our lives that it literally changed 4 people the path that 4 different people were on at that point.
Yeah.
And we all went different ways.
Were all of you involved in bringing the stones?
No.
Or just you?
It was me and my friend Kelly.
Was she one of your roommates?
Yes.
Okay, so
I moved in with her because her man was a bad seed and left her with an apartment and no way to pay for it, etc., etc. So I moved in with her, and things were going pretty well. Like I said, we were both like super goth, and hanging out in a graveyard in the middle of the night was like our idea of a good Friday night. So we came up here an awful lot. And the one time we came up here, we just noticed that it was just so wrecked. So we took them back, and we had them under. We ended up using like one of those U-shaped scrubbers. Mm-hmm. And that's what I ended up, that and like dish soap and nail polish remover. I mean, we tried lots of stuff to get it, the spray paint off of it. And then we brought them back and we laid them where they went. And the apartment just got weird. It like, the stuff I don't want to say. I want to explain it, but I don't. Basically, if you came in the apartment, you were going to get laid. And it was by either 1 to 2 to 3 different people, and possibly at the same time. It got really dark. It got really into a lot of bondage and things like that, which had you talked to either me or my roommate prior to that, a year, we would have both told you were crazy. That was nothing that any of us were into. We called it the fuchsia cloud of sex.
Your 90s sound not unlike my 90s.
And it was just kind of one of those things where, like, we had people that were coming over that we didn't even know that well, but we weren't like that. It was just very, very odd. And when we finally created this weird triangle with this guy, Steve, that we all lived there together, everything was pretty good for the 3 of us, like polyamory, for about 2 to 3 months. At which point it got weird, and I got angry the one time, and then when I left and moved to New York City. Like, I left on a Friday morning because I wasn't involved in what was going on in the house, and I got really angry about it, and all of a sudden threw everything in my car and drove to New York City and moved there.
Wow.
Like, stuff that we wouldn't have done. Things that were way out of our personalities.
Do you want me to clip out parts of that, or
that
it's up to you? You tell me.
It's your audience. I don't know. Like, I don't want to say. Like, I was trying to figure out how to explain the noise from the bottom of the cemetery without actually saying.
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I just know that at the time it was just so. The several months between when we took the stones and when we brought them back created such a weird amount of chaos in this tiny little apartment that hadn't been there before.
Yeah, that's...
To the point that we all noticed it.
And
we all blamed the stones.
Right. And, I mean, there's no way to know, but you wonder if, objectively, was it the stones, or was it the idea that was in your head and your roommate's head, and you're sort of manifesting this stuff because of that? You know what I mean? Either way, it roots back to the stones.
Right.
But you know...
You have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't think about it, about the stones, and like, we had kind of forgotten about them. We brought them in, we didn't have any room. They got put in a cardboard box under the couch. So they were there for a good couple of weeks where we weren't consciously thinking about them. And it was just weird. I don't have any other way to put it. And there are some stones missing. At one point, there were fuller rows here.
There's some, I don't know if you tripped on them or not, there was some laying on the wall over there.
On the wall back there, yeah. And those might be pieces that at one point I had in my house. I don't know. But you're talking years later.
Yeah.
Years.
Way back in the 1990s.
You know, dogmen can be whirlwinds of destruction.
We heard a dog barking, but it was while the train was going by. I think it was a local dog barking while we were there.
Yeah, and the thing is, Hans Graf Cemetery is not as isolated as one might assume.
No, the village of Rowena is right there.
Oh, that's an actual town?
Yeah. It's probably 50 yards maybe.
Yeah, I always felt like it was someone's backyard, really.
But there were no dog men. If there were, I would have called 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy. See if we could get them trained. Some dog man pups.
It doesn't have to be puppies, right? That's the thing. Like, if you have an older dog, they can train them too, right?
If you have an older dog, sithappens.us. They can help you with that as well. 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy is their program for puppies, but they can help with all dogs. You can find them at sithappens.us. Look for the 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy link at the top of the page. They have a relationship-based approach that helps you and your puppy become perfect for each other. They have online sources, like video lessons, a secret Facebook group, and more one-on-one options are available. So whatever you need help with your puppy, 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy can help you. They'll teach you what to do and also what not to do. Again, you can find them at sithappens.us. Look for the 90 Days to the Perfect Puppy link at the top of the page. I know you get very happy when you can stay on theme with the photo of the week.
It's very rare that there's something even remotely, like, I don't really have a bulk of ghost photos.
I'm working on that, trying to get more. But we have a cemetery here. Well, actually, it's a graveyard. There's a church right beside it.
So that makes it a graveyard.
That makes it a graveyard. Do you know where this is?
No, and I mean, I guess it's possible. Usually what I do to try to come up with a location is try to find something on one of the stones that I can look up on Find a Grave. But it's a little indistinct.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell.
It just looks like sort of a community graveyard in a tiny little church. I mean, it has early 1800s New England-y, mid-Atlantic kind of vibes to me.
Yeah, it could be a Pennsylvania church. Could be...
I think it's one I found around here, so I'm assuming it's somewhere.
And those graves are, what, late early 1900s, probably, the style of the gravestones?
Yes, because some of these are simpler, but they have the base on. Yeah, I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looks like a little old-timey school with the bell in it. I mean, it's obviously a church, but there's probably someone who can tell by just strictly by the architecture. Like, if that's I mean, it could be even a Quaker meeting house. I'm not sure.
Usually they have...
They don't have the bells, right? They wouldn't have a bell necessarily up in a tower.
Probably not, yeah. In any case, we have a cemetery photo. It is board mounted. Is this just a mounted photo? This isn't... Just because it's mounted on a backing doesn't make it a cabinet card, right?
Yeah, because this is a little later. This is probably 1910 or so, maybe.
That was my next question.
This is someone's probably amateur snapshot mounted on to a gray mount.
Well, they did a good job.
They did do a good job. It's
framed nicely.
Yes, nice composition.
If you go to the show notes under this episode at strangefamiliars.com, you'll see an image of this photo. You can click on that. It'll take you to our Etsy shop where you can buy this or other photos of the week. While you're at our Etsy shop, you can pick up Monsters Under the Hospital Bed, my new art booklet. Pick up your Strange Familiars Awoken Tree t-shirt. You can pick up any of my other books. They're all available there. They all come signed by me when you order them from us on Etsy. Some of my music is there, some original artwork, and lots more. Our shop name is Lost Grave, but you can find us if you type in Strange Familiars. Our stuff will come up. Chad's shop is Ruck Rabbit Outdoors on Etsy, and our friends Karmic Garden are on Etsy as well. It's one word, Karmic Garden. They have the Strange Familiars scent for soap, sanitizers, and more. They also have a Flannel Man scent and many, many other wonderful scents as well. We're going to try to start doing 2 patron shows a month. One regular kind of full episode like we've been doing, and one more relaxed show, maybe a little bit shorter, or maybe less of a theme, just more relaxed, more of a discussion kind of show as well.
Casual Friday version of Strange Familiars.
Right, or it might be a sampling of different things that we've, different topics and so forth. We'll see. But we're going to try to start doing 2 shows a month for our patrons because we want to give you guys as much content as we can. We'll promise that one for sure. We'll try to get that second one done as well. So, little hint as to what the second patron show might be to May, if I get it done in time. After we went to all of the cemeteries on Saturday, Chad and I stopped by a little place known as Site 7. We'll be back soon with another episode of Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts, music, books, art, podcasts, and more. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. If you want to hear more or purchase music by Stone Breath, you can go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. Strange Familiars is on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars, where you can join the Strange Familiars gathering group. We're on Instagram @strangefamiliars, and we're always at strangefamiliars.com.
Hangs on that tree. They sing the death of a dream to me. But who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? Flows in bubbling stream over rocks and under me. But who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? It is my mother's son. How long will I walk? Oh, until I am done. What shall I do? I will follow the hum until all of my songs have been sung. My eyes from stars, ring the bell and spread the card. But who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? I'm singing unto the wind, to hollow bones and empty skin. And who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? It is my mother's son. How long will I walk? Oh, until I am done. And what shall I do? I will follow the hum until all of my songs have been sung. skulls, dust and sand and deadly falls. But who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? Alone walking, I sing for you my offering. And who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? What is my name? It is my mother's son. How long will I walk? Oh, until I am done. And what shall I do? I will follow the hum until all of my songs have been sung. Water flows in holy spring under clouds and over me. But who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? Sing murder from the tree, call and screech my destiny. But who is listening to me? And where shall I find thee? It is my mother's son. How long will I walk? Oh, until I am done. What shall I do? I will follow the hum until all of my songs